Welcome to another Super Deluxe Edition unboxing video, and today we've got the big one. This is the new Paul McCartney 7-inch singles box set. So this is packed in a big, well, it's not as big as you might think, but it's a wooden crate. It's a big wooden crate which is made out of redwood pine and birch ply. This is FSC approved, which is the Forestry Commission. Yeah, it's a fantastic presentation, you have to say. 87-inch singles in here. What I like about this is it's not pretending to be a wooden crate. It is actually a wooden crate. And these straps here, they're not pretending to be metal straps. They actually are straps with metal fasteners here. It's like a shipping crate in miniature. When you see it online, you kind of think, oh, it looks enormous. But these are only 7-inch singles in here. So if you compare this to sort of the size of an album, it's kind of compact, but extremely sturdy. So you can see here in a minute, I'll take these straps off, but it's got the details here. So that's like the size of a vinyl record, so it gives you a bit of comparison. Very impressive presentation. Let's just turn this around. As I say, these are proper straps. You just press them in and undo them. So I'll take these red straps out of the way. So you can see it a bit better now. So you've got McCartney Productions Limited written on the top. This way up at that end. And then another up symbol there. That 7's obviously representative of the 7-inch singles box. And then on this side you've got the title of the package, you've got the barcode number, the weight, which is 8.3 kilograms. And then these are limited to 3,000 copies, and it tells you what your number is there. So these wooden boxes were all made in the UK. The records were pressed apparently across 2 different pressing plants in Europe, because it was nearly 250,000 vinyl records that had to get made for this limited edition box set. So let's take off the lid and have a look. So I should say it's going to take a while to do this unboxing video, so if you haven't made yourself a cup of tea already, maybe press pause and go out and do that, because we've got 80 singles to get through here. Everything Paul has released, more or less, since the breakup of the Beatles. So this covers his, Wings related career in the 70s, and then all the solo records that subsequently followed. Yeah, so if we turn it around, what we've got here, we've got the 80 singles, and then there's a book, pretty good book, which goes through each single. It's got a good introduction by Paul, then some notes, and then one by one it goes through the singles. They've selected sort of Paul's favourite cover from the various releases across the world. So there's Swedish artwork, there's Belgium, Israel, Sweden, Germany, Australia, the Netherlands, Japan. So we'll see as we go through. What I'm going to do, just to keep it interesting, is to maybe have a look back at the original singles. I haven't got a full collection of originals, but I've got quite a few originals, sometimes different variants like 12 inches, etc. Just to sort of compare and contrast with this box set. Everyone that buys this box set gets a free bonus white label. So it's randomly selected. It says here, test pressings are created to ensure a record doesn't contain any unwanted artifacts such as audio pops and scratches. If an issue occurs, it's reviewed, corrected, and then repressed for approval. This exclusive test pressing was created during the production of the 7-inch singles box set. So these are like white labels. And my particular one is Listen to What the Man Said, backed with Lovin' Song. But obviously, it's just random, whatever you get. But it's still got its own little brown wallet here, so it's not just shoved in. Quite hard to get back in. So that's the bonus test pressing. And then after that, you've just got, I say just, but you've got Paul's entire post-Beatles career, more or less, on 7-inch single. There's these little foam inserts which you can pull out to make accessing the singles a little bit easier. These foam inserts obviously keep everything tightly packed for shipping. Right, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to take that foam insert out there, take the one out at the back, and then it's going to be a lot easier now to go through and take a look at these singles. So starting at the beginning. So here we go. So this is Paul's first solo single, Another Day. Got to number 2 in the UK, nearly a number 1 with his first single. There were no singles from the McCartney album, so this was a non-album single because it never ended up on the Ram record, which was the next long player. Of course, this is still early days, so we've got the Apple label here. And that artwork is from Sweden. B-side, Oh Woman Oh Why, that was another exclusive track at the time. Next up, Uncle Albert Admiral Halsey. This was a US #1 single in its standard stereo version. But what they've done is they've put the mono version in here in the singles box set. The mono version was never a commercially released version. It was on the promo album. In fact, the entire mono mix of Ram appeared in the 2012 reissue. So they've created the single here. The one thing they do say in the booklet is the singles here are intended to be representative, not comprehensive. So that's quite interesting. There are a couple of examples we'll get to where there isn't a single where you maybe think there would be. Next up, we've got Backseat of My Car, The Backseat of My Car, which was a single in the UK off of the Ram album, backed with Heart of the Country. Just like Uncle Albert, this has a die-cut classic Apple sleeve. I should say these sleeves are quite thick. The vinyl records aren't really thick vinyl records, which I think is how they should be. Sometimes you get singles, which are heavyweight singles, but they're ludicrously thick, and it just doesn't really work for me. So I'm glad these singles are fairly thin, but the card sleeves are definitely thicker and sturdier. You probably would have got paper sleeves back in the day, as we'll actually see when we do a bit of a comparison. In fact, this is a good time to talk about the comparison, actually, because we've got some Wings sleeves here. So this is the Love Is Strange single. It never was a single. It's going to be a single. They actually created an edit of Love Is Strange from the Wings Wildlife album. But it never got released because Paul wanted to release Give Ireland Back to the Irish. So this is effectively an example of a single that never was being issued. It's the first time the edit of Love Is Strange has been commercially released on 7-inch single. They did include it with the Wildlife box set on CD. I Am Your Singer is a track from the album as well. Yeah, so this is Give Ireland Back to the Irish. Paul's sort of, political protest single. Kind of different version. I think that's an instrumental on the B-side. I do actually have the original of this, which, as you can see, is pretty battered in terms of the outer sleeve, but it's a good indication to compare the original one. So this is a UK sleeve. This is one of the ones that they've done from the UK, and you can see it's pretty accurate in terms of the representation. It hasn't got the kind of push through jukebox center, but other than that, I think they've done a great job. It is nice, the old retro Wings sleeve. So yeah, this is a period where Paul was releasing lots of non-album singles. We had Give Ireland Back to the Irish, Mary Had a Little Lamb, which, again, this is the original UK sleeve reproduced. There's the label with the Wings logo on it. So Little Woman Love is the B-side to Mary Had a Little Lamb. And then another non-album single, Hi Hi Hi. This sleeve is from Belgium. It's quite interesting. It's got a bit of an upside down thing going on here. And this has an Apple label on it, interestingly enough. I do have the UK version of Hi 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 in this plain black sleeve. And as you can see, that was what it looked like in the UK, the red label with the Wings logo on it. So My Love, so this was a very big hit for Paul. Got to #1 in America. In fact, one of the quite good things about this book is it's got some statistics here, so it tells you the highest chart position. So in America it got to #1, and in the UK it got to #10. And it's got all the credits and the information. This book's really good, actually. I think they've done a great job. But yeah, so this is My Love, and that's the sleeve as released in Israel. The Mess was the B-side. I don't know what this label looks like. Okay, so this is more of a sort of classic parlophone label. It says McCartney's Wings. Now, interestingly, My Love in the UK, again, it was a very different presentation. You had the Red Rose Speedway logo on the, what was still an Apple Records release, but there was no Apple label or anything like that. Next up, this is the Swedish cover art for Live and Let Die, of course, Paul McCartney and Wings' fantastic Bond theme. Long regarded as one of the best ever Bond themes from the film Live and Let Die, of course. And the B-side was I Lie Around. And again, this still has an Apple label in terms of what's going on at Sweden at the time. Now, Hell on Wheels. So this was the next single. This is sort of a forgotten single, really. It was added to Band on the Run subsequently in America, but in Britain, this was always a standalone, non-album single. This artwork is from the Spanish single, so this is how it was released in Spain. And Country Dreamer was the B-side to this particular single. So we've still got an Apple label here going on. There's a lot of debate whether Hell on Wheels is officially part of Band on the Run or not. I don't really feel it fits on the album very well. And obviously it was never on the album in the UK, but I understand why people in America feel like it should be, because it was how it was released at the time there. So now then, Jet was the first single from Band on the Run in most territories. So this artwork is from Germany. The B-side is Let Me Roll It. And again, we've still got an Apple artwork there. And then the next single from Band on the Run was, of course, Band on the Run. Now this artwork is from Germany again. The B-side is 1985. In the UK, it was Zoo Gang. There was an instrumental called Zoo Gang, which was for a short-lived TV programme in the UK. And just to prove the point, here's an original Band on the Run with Zoo Gang on the B-side. Now, Mrs. Vanderbilt, this wasn't a single in the UK or America, but it did come out in Australia and in some territories in Europe, so hence it's been included here. This artwork is from the Netherlands. The B-side is Bluebird, which is on the album as well, of course. And then the next single to be released after all the Band on the Run activity had died down was Junior's Farm. So this was quite a big hit in America. I think it got to number 3, 4, something like that. What we're looking at here is the Belgium artwork from the single released over there. Sally G was the B-side. This is one of these upside down things, which is slightly weird. And yeah, there we go. There's a single. Apple label. Listen to What the Man Says. This was number 1 in America. This was a massive hit. Not included on the Wings Greatest compilation, which I always thought was slightly strange for such a big hit. But you can see we've got some of the Venus and Mars design elements on the single here. This is from the Australian version of the release. This is the one I've got the white label of in my box. So there's a capital logo with some Venus and Mars design elements on it. So Letting Go, there's another single from Venus and Mars. This was remixed and sort of sounds very different actually from the album version. But as we can see, we've got the same kind of design going on here. This is a German version of Letting Go. And then the final single is the edit of Venus and Mars Rock Show. So that was released as a single. And then Magneto and Titanium Man was the B-side of that. This is from Belgium. So it's been quite a bit from Belgium, actually. Again, very similar kind of label. In fact, here is my Venus and Mars Rock Show original single with Magneto and Titanium Man. As you can see, this label is the same kind of design. I don't know why this has a phonogram sleeve on it. That's obviously not original. So next up, Silly Love Songs. Paul's riposte to people saying, haven't we had enough of silly love songs? Well, no, we hadn't, and this got to number 1 in America. This is the French sleeve to Silly Love Songs. Linda's Cook of the House is on the B-side. And as you can see, we're getting into album-specific label designs here. That, of course, is off of Wings at the Speed of Sound. This is the first single off of that album, 1976. So Silly Love Songs got to number 1 in America, and there's another big hit with Let 'Em In, which was a top 5 hit both sides of the Atlantic, I believe. Brilliant album track, Beware My Love, is the B-side. These photos here are from the back sleeve of Wings at the Speed of Sound. And as you can see, more sort of artwork from the album on this particular single. Now, of course, Wings went on tour, massive tour, Wings over America, Wings over the world. This was the single at the time, the live version of Maybe I'm Amazed, which was a highlight off of Paul's first solo album that was never released as a single in its studio incarnation. Pretty obvious that this is the Japanese version of that single. You can see the label design carries over from Wings Over America, the album. As does this bit at the bottom, of course. In fact, you even get some lyrics on the back, which is quite nice. This is what the UK version of that same single looks like. So you can see it's quite similar in terms of the label design. I don't know whether it came with the original cover or not. Now then, Mull of Kintyre, still the best-selling single in the UK that isn't a charity single. So it still holds that, even though Band-Aid and Elton John's Candle in the Wind for Princess Diana overtook it in terms of sales. This is still the biggest selling non-charity single in the UK. What we're looking at here is the UK version of the single, although I have got this. And yeah, it's basically the same. It's interesting to look at the original and the new version and see that they've sort of colour corrected the photo a bit, so it looks slightly different. But yeah, so that's a good example of seeing how well they've recreated it. Of course, this wasn't a single in America, so it didn't really break through in the same way, despite the fact that this has got a capital logo on it. But the original has a capital logo as well, so I'm not really sure what that's all about. So, With a Little Luck, this was the next single, another massive hit for Paul. This is the German version of With a Little Luck. Backwards Traveller Cufflink is the B-side, which is on the album. This is actually the radio edit of With a Little Luck, which chops out quite a lot of the brilliant sort of keyboard extended solo bit. But nevertheless, that's how it was released at the time. This is the first single from London Town, of course. And again, we've got some more album artwork on the 7-inch single label. Now, this is actually the German cover art for With a Little Luck. But I've got, funny enough, I've got a Spanish pressing of this for some reason. They do use the same photo, but it's slightly different design. So there's an example of 2 non-UK sleeves of With a Little Luck. Same B-side and everything. Let's see what the label's like. Okay, yeah, it's got the same kind of label, but it's got a jukebox type centre hole in it. So With a Little Luck was quite a big hit, but the same can't be said for I've Had Enough, which the public didn't really take to. Yeah, this wasn't even a top 40 hit in the UK. And this was a little spell, apart from Good Night Tonight, this was a spell where Paul wasn't really having big hits for a while, which is quite interesting in of itself. The B-side is Deliver Your Children. And if you're wondering about this artwork, it's the UK artwork as originally released, which is also a bit weird because it doesn't really look anything like Paul McCartney or Wings. So yeah, I imagine that accounted for some of the lack of success as well. So this is London Town. I really like the title track of the London Town album. Again, this wasn't a hit in the UK, only got to number 60 or something like that. So it was a strange little period, but it's a great song. It's a real highlight off the record, I think. This is the Netherlands artwork for London Town. And yeah, more sort of artwork from the album on the sleeve there. So finally, Paul had a big hit again with Good Night Tonight. This was just prior to the Back to the Egg album. And I think much to the record company's consternation, Paul refused to let this song go on the album. But yeah, this was a really big hit. Great single. This is the French artwork for Good Night Tonight, which I'm not sure is... Well, it's interesting. I don't think it's the best version of it. It had a great B-side in Daytime, Nighttime Suffering. And we've got a sort of Parlophone EMI label going on there. There was a long version of this released on 12-inch, of course, which you may well be aware of. This is the 12-inch version. As you can see, this artwork is so much better than that artwork. So I mean, it's interesting to see the difference, but you can see why this was chosen for, certainly in the UK, I imagine. I think this was the artwork in America as well, but that looks really good. Now, with the release of the excellent Back to the Egg album, Paul stopped having really big hits again. So Old Siam Sir got to number 35, for instance. And then Getting Closer, which is the next one, didn't even get into the top 40. It was peaked at number 60. So not exactly great commercial success to promote the album with. Spin It On was the B-side. Again, you've got to like the label design for Back to the Egg singles. Very nice. If you're wondering about the artwork, this is the UK artwork. It must have come in this die-cut sleeve. And this is the UK artwork again for Getting Closer. So this was, as I say, a great song, but just not really a hit. Baby's Request was the B-side. I do have the original of this. That's what it looks like. So excellent reproduction. Again, more eggy artwork. I think that's Sunny Side Up and that's Over Easy. And that's exactly how it was released on the original record. So this is Arrow Through Me. This was a single, wasn't a single in the UK. Obviously this is the Japanese sleeve. Another great song. I mean, Back to the Egg is a great album, I think. It's obviously we're waiting for the archive reissue of that, but because it hasn't been reissued, these are all new masterings. This is all 2022 remasters for the, so this is the first time we're hearing, maybe there was a couple of things on Pure McCartney release, but we're hearing brand new remasterings of the Back to the Egg material, which is interesting, of course. As I say, yeah, this is obviously the Japanese artwork on this one. Hence, it's got the EMI Odeon label on it. And of course, you can guess what this is. This is Paul McCartney, Wonderful Christmas Time. So this is credited to Paul McCartney, but the video has him and Wings in it. So it's a bit of an interesting one. Obviously, very big Christmas hit. The B-side is Red Nosed Reggae. This was released in 1979. So we're about to enter the era of solo Paul McCartney as we get into the 1980s. What a better way to start the 1980s by having a #1 single in America with Coming Up. So of course, in America, it was the live version that was released as the single because the record company didn't really like Paul's treated vocals. So we got the studio version in the UK, but in America they had the live version. This single here has both on it. The studio version is on the A side, and then the live at Glasgow version, and the B side, which is Lunchbox Odd Socks. So there's 3 tracks here. It's like a little EP, really. Great artwork, great video for this song. I mean, fantastic single. Paul's consistently played this song actually throughout his live performances over the last few decades. This is obviously off of the McCartney 2 album, 1980, first single. Wings had effectively disbanded, although there was never any actual announcement. McCartney 2 was great for singles actually because Waterfalls was a brilliant song, such a great single. It did quite well. I mean, it was top 10 in the UK. I think people forget that. So Paul had 2 top 10 hits off of his, well, it's not really his first solo album, it's his second solo album after McCartney 1. So this is the sort of era of the classic kind of Parlophone black labels, which we'll see quite a lot of in the 1980s. I do have an original of Waterfalls. This is the UK artwork. And there's the original artwork, so as you can see, it's more or less identical. Now then, Temporary Secretary. This was only ever released as a 12-inch. This is an example of something in this box set where they've reformatted it. Now, you may well be aware that Secret Friend went on for 10 minutes on the 12-inch version. And of course, because it's a 12-inch, there's more space to do that. But what they've done, in the book, it actually says they found in the archive a 7-inch edit that had already been created. And that is on this single. So that gets released for the first time. It wasn't even in the McCartney 2 deluxe set, I don't think. So that's previously unreleased. And there you go. So it's 5-minute, 12-second edit. So it wasn't created for this set. It was actually already in existence. This artwork is based on the UK artwork. I don't know whether it was released anywhere else, but it was definitely a 12-inch in the UK. So this will be familiar. Ebony and Ivory, first single off of Tug of War. Massive hit, of course. Transatlantic #1. And the B-side is the non-album track Rain Clouds. There was a solo version of this song with just Paul on it, but that only ended up on the 12-inch. So for the 7-inch, we got Rain Clouds, which is a great song as well. It features Denny Laine, interestingly enough. Denny Laine was involved in the Tug of War sessions, of course. This is the UK cover art. I think this cover art was probably used in a lot of places. Next up, Take It Away, another sort of great song from the Tug of War album, 1982, of course. I've always liked this colorized artwork. I have a 12-inch of Take It Away, but I don't have a 7-inch to compare it with. But as you can see, same cover art. The B-side to Take It Away was a non-album track called I'll Give You a Ring. On the 12-inch, the extra track you got was Dress You Up as a Robber, which is off the album. There's the label. And then Tug of War was a single from Tug of War. I think a lot of people forget about this single because it was surprisingly not a hit. I mean, it's the title track of the album. Paul had already had a UK #1, a top 20 hit with Take It Away. But this kind of stalled at number 53, I think it was. So rather surprising, but maybe everyone had bought the album by this point. The B-side was Get It as well, which is off the album as well. So you weren't actually getting anything new if you'd already bought the album. This is the UK artwork again. In fact, there's a little bit of a run here of UK artwork, we'll see. So now we're getting to the Pipes of Peace singles. This is 1983. Of course, Tug of War and Pipes of Peace, there's a lot of overlap because the sessions involved tracks for both albums. This was a massive hit, #1 in America, #2 in the UK. This is the UK artwork with that slightly long-legged Michael Jackson featuring on the front. And the B-side to this is Ode to a Koala Bear, which is a great little B-side. But it's not the Australian mix. I know a lot of people were wondering what kind of mix would be on here. It's just the normal version. But yeah, I mean, this was the period where Paul was enormous. After that slight dip at the end of Wings, suddenly he was back with #1s. Coming Up had been a #1 in the US. Ebony and Ivory had been a #1. This was a #1. I mean, Paul McCartney was like a hit machine at this point in time. Although the weird thing is, Paul had never had a solo UK #1, not until Pipes of Peace reached the top in, I think it was early 84, just after Christmas. So yeah, another #1 for him. This didn't enjoy the same level of success in America. In fact, I don't think it was a single in America. So Bad was the single in America, wasn't it? But yeah, this is the UK artwork. And the B-side is, yeah, the B-side is So Bad, which was the single in America. So there are only 2 singles from Pipes of Peace, which was vaguely surprising, but Paul was busy. He'd made Give My Regards to Broad Street. He'd done a whole load of recording for that album, re-recording Beatles classics. Arguably the last McCartney classic song of this era was No More Lonely Nights. Fantastic song that written to be the kind of the lead promotional track for the film Give My Regards to Broad Street. I also like the artwork as well. Obviously this is all from the Broad Street artwork. So on this single you get the ballad version and then you get the play out version on the B-side. There's a few versions of this single released at the time. Here are my original versions. So this is the standard 7-inch, which they're basically replicating here. But there was a second 7-inch which had the ballad version. You can see it says ballad there. And then the B-side was an edit of the Arthur Baker remix of the play-out version. So it's quite a good little version to have. I mean, there's loads of versions of this single. There was a 12-inch picture of this, which I've got somewhere. But yeah, this was another big hit. It got to #2 in the UK. It was top 10 in America. I think it got to #6 in America. So a fantastic song. And then even though Give My Regards to Broad Street wasn't exactly well received, Paul had a strong 1984 because No More Lonely Nights was followed up by Paul McCartney and the Frog chorus, of course, with We All Stand Together. So this got to number 3. The only reason this didn't get to number 1 is because Band-Aid's Do They Know It's Christmas was number 1, and Wham's Last Christmas was number 2. So if you're not going to have a number 1, they're two good songs to be the ones that are stopping you. This did fantastically well. I mean, obviously people like to make fun out of Paul McCartney and the Frog chorus. They kind of see this as a kind of an indication that, you know, Paul had lost his creative hard edge or something like that. But he was still having hits and he was still very popular. And this was a big deal at the time. Now, Spies Like Us, this was like the beginnings of Paul's work with Hugh Padgham, which it would end up with Press to Play in 1986. But this was released in 1985, so it was another hit. I think it got to 13 in the UK and it was a top 10 hit in America. It was the theme song. I think they played it out at the end on the end credits for the movie. And Paul dug out an old song from Venus and Mars era, Wings, My Carnival. That was the B-side. It got remixed actually for the B-side here. But you can see this is the US sleeve. So we've got capital label with sort of capital design here. So just as a point to note, that's the sort of end of the first section of the box. So there's two sections here. So this is the second section. So with the second section of the box, there isn't any foam because the book goes in there. So once you take the book out, you can actually browse through the singles quite nicely. So now we get to some more of the 80s stuff. This is the fun stuff because I remember buying a lot of this at the time. I was really into Paul McCartney around the time of Broad Street, Press, you know, I'm just getting into buying his records. So Press was the first single from Press to Play, the album. It didn't do that well. I think it peaked at 23, something like that. Has a great B-side, this, called It's Not True. It's the shorter version of It's Not True. There was a long version, it was on the 12-inch and on the CD when it came out. I've got a couple of different original 7-inches. Some of them had video edit like this on it. Apparently this is a US single from Press. There are a few slight differences. It doesn't. The UK one doesn't have the catalogue number in the bottom corner here. And then on the back, you can see there's some slight sort of typographical things. It says here from the upcoming LP Press to Play. I mean, that isn't on the UK version. But, you know, some small differences. Now, Pretty Little Head's an interesting one because it didn't come out in America. It was just a promotional single. It's the second single from Press to Play in the UK. But they've chosen to replicate the American promo 12-inch, which is what this looked like. Yeah, so you get the remix of Pretty Little Head, which is very, very different from the album version. And then the B-side is Right Away. So that was the UK single was like this, but obviously it wasn't presented like this. So I've got the 12-inch of Pretty Little Head here. And actually I wish they'd used this artwork for the 7-inch here because I really like this kind of stylized version of the photo. As we'll see in a minute, Stranglehold, the single in America, used the artwork off of the 7-inch of Pretty Little Head in the UK. So it would have been an opportunity to use this because this was on the cassette and it was on the 12-inch. Anyway, so that is the reformatted promo 12-inch artwork of Pretty Little Head on the 7-inch in the box set. This was the actual single design for Pretty Little Head in the UK, but they used it for Stranglehold in America. So this is obviously the American version of that song. The good thing about them including this in the box set is you get the remix of Angry, which is quite good. That's an album track, but the remix of Angry was only on the 12-inch of Pretty Little Head in the UK, so it does allow us to have that song in the box. And then Only Love Remains. Pretty Little Head was a bit of a flop. It didn't even get into the top 75. I mean, it was shocking how bad that did. So Paul McCartney reclaimed a little bit of ground by having a minor hit with Only Love Remains. This got to number 34 in the UK, so it sort of scraped into the top 40. You know, Paul, he had a couple of TV appearances at the time which helped it. He was on the Tube and he was on a kind of London Palladium thing. Tough on a Tightrope was the B-side, which was a song not on the album, although it was on the CD of the album, which had 3 bonus tracks. There's a really good 12-inch version of that, which is unreleased on CD. One of the things they did actually to help sort of sell this single was they gave away a copy of My Love Kintyre with it. Here's my original that you see. Includes free single, My Love Kintyre. That was the third and final single from 1986's Press to Play. So in 1987, Paul released the All the Best compilation. Sort of took stock a bit, thought it's a good time to get Greatest Hits out. It'd been nearly 10 years since, well, it had been 10 years since Wings' Greatest. Yeah, this really good song, Once Upon a Long Ago, came from some Phil Ramone sessions. And I was just looking at the credit, actually, it says produced by George Martin. But Phil Ramone definitely co-produced that. And if I get the original single out, which is here, the credit says produced by Phil Ramone and mixed by George Martin. And then on this single it says produced by George Martin. So I don't think that's correct. And if we look at what it says in the book, well, it's got George Martin as the sole producer in the book, but I don't think that's correct, is it? Because this sort of famously came out of the Phil Ramone sessions in the mid-80s. There's another track called Loveliest Thing, and there's a whole bunch of unreleased tracks, but Loveliest Thing came out on a Flowers in the Dirt single, and that was from the same session. So that, I think that might be a bit of a mistake. Back on My Feet. Now this is a first commercially released song from the Elvis Costello sessions, which would end up on Flowers in the Dirt and some of the subsequent albums. Back on My Feet was one of the songs that got relegated to download only in the Flowers in the Dirt archive edition. So it's nice to see it back. There was a couple of different versions of Once Upon a Long Ago. There was a long version, there's an extended version, there's a single version. This was also Paul's first CD single, which I have got somewhere. Yeah, Once Upon a Long Ago was Paul's first CD single, which looks like that. There you go, he still has the Phil Ramone credit. This was also the first time we heard some songs from what became the Russian albums. They were bonus tracks. And this is a great single, and it was Paul's last solo top 10 hit in the UK. He hasn't had a single top 10 hit since 1987 as a solo artist. Now onto the brilliant My Brave Face. This is the lead single from Flowers in the Dirt. I always liked the artwork for this. It's very quirky. The B-side was Flying to My Home. Another great song that unfairly, in my view, got relegated to download-only status in the box set. The artwork we're looking at is the US artwork. I mean, this should have been a bigger hit than it was, to be honest. It got to number 18 in the UK and it got to number 25 in America. It just sounded like it was going to be a big hit, and then it wasn't, and then no one could really work out what was going on. This one, another great song from Flowers in the Dirt. Another great B-side, actually, The First Stone. It's such a good period, this. Loads of singles coming out, loads of extra tracks. I think this is the UK artwork for this one. And then Figure of Eight, this was another single from the album. This is the Australian artwork. There's so many versions of this, it's unbelievable. I've got the 12 inches. There's so many different versions of artwork they could pick from it. So this is like the normal UK 12 inch. That's what that looked like. Figure of Eight. And then shot from Paul on tour. And the B-side was a remix of this one. And this is the second 12 inch artwork, which looks a bit like one of the CD singles. And the B-side is the Tub Dub mix of Où est le Soleil, which was a CD and cassette bonus track on Flowers in the Dirt. And then there was even a third 12 inch with an etched disc. Since you've made it this far and we're well into this video, I'll show you what the etched disc looks like. There you go, so there's the etched disc of Figure of Eight. This had one of the Chet Pettibone remixes of Où est le Soleil. Basically, it was kind of promoted as a bit of a double A-side, but it wasn't really a double A-side, I don't think. In fact, Où est le Soleil came out in America as its own release. I actually picked this up when I was travelling in America. And I've got the cassette single of it for some bonus brownie points. Now there was one more single from Flowers in the Dirt, which was Put It There. But before that came out, they must have released the tour pack version of Flowers in the Dirt, special edition. And it had this bonus single in it, Party Party. It's on a little CD single in the CD version. In the vinyl version, it was on the 7-inch single. And that's what they've chosen to recreate here. There's no B-side. So talking of etched disc, this is an etched disc, which I'm trying to show you, but there you go. Might have been nice to have put a B-side on here. They didn't have to have an etched disc. Thinking what it might have been. P.S. Love Me Do re-recording maybe, which ended up on the Japanese version of Flowers in the Dirt. Could have put that on here, but maybe Paul's gone off that. So Put It There, brilliant single, last single from Flowers in the Dirt. That's a Paul McCartney bit of art on the front. This does have a great B-side in Mama's Little Girl, which was an unreleased Wings song from the kind of 73, 74 type era, I think it was. Very good single. This is the UK artwork, and that was sort of the design of the singles at the time. So there's quite a lot of promotional activity around Paul's tour. He was touring again for the first time in a decade. I saw him in 1990. So there was various different singles. This was a European single, Long and Winding Road, live. Doesn't say live, but it was live. Yeah, this is from the Tripping the Live Fantastic album. Sea Moon was the B-side. In the UK we got Birthday, that was our version of this particular single. And Good Day Sunshine was the B-side. Similar kind of presentation. The highlights version of Tripping the Live Fantastic had this bonus song, All My Trials, which wasn't on the full version, I don't think. So that's what this single is about. There was a couple of really good CD singles of this, which actually gave you some great bonus material. And then we have this special 7-inch which has been created for this box set. It's from the Liverpool Oratorio, Paul's collaboration with Carl Davis. So this is effectively a 4-track EP. So next we're into Off the Ground territory. This was Paul's 1993 album. It was the second album with the band that he'd toured with and recorded a lot of Flowers in the Dirt with. Hope of Deliverance was a great single. I actually really loved the single. Long Leather Coat is a particularly good B-side. And this was the design in most of Europe, I think. Usual Parlophone 45 label. The CD single of this was brilliant because it had 3 fantastic tracks which weren't on the album. The second single, I love the artwork for this single actually, Come On People. Another sort of minor hit for Paul. He was having sort of, top 20, top 25 hits fairly regularly. And yeah, he was doing kind of reasonably well. In America, Off the Ground, the title track was issued as a single. So a few people have raised their eyebrows that wasn't included in this particular box set. Don't know why. In the book it does say that the idea behind this box set is it's supposed to be representative, not comprehensive, so they've kind of covered themselves with that particular statement. But there is the Off the Ground single. It was the CD single. It's a pretty generous 4 or 5 track CD single. Very nice artwork actually. But yeah, it was only ever a US single. There was a couple of remixes done as well, sort of 7-inch remixes. So for the Flaming Pie era, so this is 97 we're talking about now. And now there weren't any black 7-inch singles. They did them all as picture discs at the time. So this is the first time that these are coming out as proper 7-inch singles, which is quite interesting. So that's Young Boy. So they've just used the same design but put it onto a 7-inch. I mean, there were CD singles, there were 7-inch picture discs, but looks really good actually, formatted for a 7-inch. In fact, all 3 singles from the album, they've done the same kind of look. So this was the final single, Beautiful Night. Not really the best photo of Paul for a single cover, but that's what they went with. Love Come Tumbling Down was the B-side. All the B-sides from this were very interesting, and there was some extra stuff on the CD singles as well at the time. Next up is this single from the Run Devil Run album, 1999. This is actually a 3-track single, so it's No Other Baby, Brown Eyed Handsome Man and Fabulous. It's done in the old-fashioned sort of die-cut sleeve. Obviously it's supposed to evoke the old era of rock and roll. So now we're into the new millennium, new band, new album, Driving Rains. This was the title track from A Lover to a Friend. Paul's first studio album of original material since Linda had died. So this is another Rupert themed song, Tropical Island Hum, and We All Stand Together. Then we've got a couple of singles from the Chaos and Creation in the Backyard album, which was 2005. This is Paul's last album on EMI. So Fine Line was the lead single. Very interesting choice of a single. And then the B-side to this is Growing Up Falling Down. This is like the UK/European artwork design. Interestingly, you actually get this insert with this one, which we haven't had anything like that before. That must recreate the original. And then Jenny Wren was the second single from that record. Again, another great B-side in summer of '59. Now Dance Tonight's interesting because this was never released as a 7-inch single. In fact, there's a couple of reasons why this is interesting. It's never released as a 7-inch single, and it's got an unreleased demo on the B-side, so that's kind of interesting. So far we've had the Secret Friend 7-inch edit, which was previously unreleased. This is the second previously unreleased audio track in this box set, a demo of Dance Tonight. There was a picture disc, a shaped picture disc of Dance Tonight that looked like that. This didn't have a B-side, it was only 1 track on it. So yeah, this is the first time we're seeing this as a 7-inch. Likewise, Nod Your Head was never a 7-inch single, but it was, I think it was just like a digital only single, this. It's got 222 as the B-side, which was, I think that was one of the bonus singles on tracks on one of the CD singles at the time. New artwork, new 7-inch single. And then finally, Ever Present Past, another great track from the album. We're talking about the Memory Almost Full album. These singles are from 2007. House of Wax Live is the B-side. Very unusual video, this song. This has an insert with it as well. So we're into the final stretches now. I hope you're still with me. So this is a Fireman single. This was a promo-only single at the time. This is Paul and Youth, group that they had called the Fireman. As I say group, it's more of a studio-based experimental outfit. So this is Sing the Changes and Nothing Too Much, Just Out of Sight. First time this has been issued on 7-inch. I Want to Come Home. This was another one which was digital only. I think there was never a physical release of this. And another demo here which hasn't been released before. This was done for the 2009 film Everybody's Fine, but it's quite low key and, you know, kind of came and went. My Valentine. There were CD promos for My Valentine which promoted the Kisses on the Bottom album, but this is the first time it's been released on 7-inch. I really like the artwork, actually very nicely done. And this was only ever a release in the US, I believe. Paul McCartney, Christmas Kisses. This combined the classic, the Christmas song, Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire, with Wonderful Christmas Time. And this is black vinyl, but what's interesting about the American release, this is an original I've got here. It was like that. They did 2 different coloured pressings and it was random, so you either got green or red. So that's definitely a little bit different, isn't it? The design's the same, eh? And we're getting to a stage where nothing was ever released on 7-inch, to be honest. So this is the new album, so Early Days and New, the single. These were all just promotional digital type singles. Then Queenie Eye, Save Us, same kind of thing. So they've just chosen to do variants on the original album design. And then Hope for the Future. There was a physical release of this, but it was only a 12-inch. And this is another special single. So In the Blink of an Eye, this was written for an animated film. And it includes an orchestral version of Walking in the Park with Eloise, which was, the original version was on a Wing single in the 70s. So that's obviously artwork from the film. And then this is a fairly recent single. So this is from Egypt Station. I Don't Know, Come On To Me. This was a Record Store Day release originally. So they've recreated that. So we're talking 2018 now. Here's the original single with the Record Store Day logo on it. But it's fairly much a recreation of that. More singles that weren't singles really from Egypt Station. Who Cares? Backed with For You. I always thought For You was the single, but anyway. And then this was a picture disc. This was a bit of a weird one because it was 2 unreleased tracks. Home, Tonight and In a Hurry. But yeah, this was only released as a picture disc, but now we get the black vinyl version. And then home stretch, last 2 singles now. Find My Way, Winter Bird and When Winter Comes. This is from the McCartney 3 album. Nice glossy sleeve. And then last but by no means least, out of the 80 singles, Women and Wives. And this has the St. Vincent remix on the B-side. So that is all the 80 singles. This is Paul McCartney, the 7-inch singles box set. The book goes back here at the end. The white label goes there and the lid goes back on. So I hope you managed to stay with me for the entirety of that unboxing video. It has to be the longest one I've ever done. If you've enjoyed this, why not subscribe to the Super Deluxe Edition YouTube channel for more great physical music unboxed. Thanks a lot for watching and I'll see you again next time.